You have a firm to run, a team to manage, and a mountain of data to protect. You likely have an IT provider who keeps your computers running. But do you have a qualified individual ensuring you stay on the right side of the law? Welcome to The Qualified Individual, the 10-minute briefing for smart accounting firms. I'm your host, and I'm here to help you bridge the gap between standard IT and total FTC compliance. Every episode, we strip away the jargon to talk about the FTC Safeguards Rule, the hidden risks your MSP is likely missing, and the strategies that protect your client data and your personal liability. So, let's grab your coffee and let's get to work. When do most breaches at CPA firms happen? During tax season, January through April, when everyone is slammed, working overtime, moving fast. Someone clicks on a phishing email that looks like it came from the document management system. By the time anyone realizes it, the attacker has credentials to the network. This isn't a coincidence. Tax season is when security threats amplify. Here's why tax season is high risk from a security perspective. There's volume and pressure. You've got more data moving through your systems in January, February, and March than any other time of year. More client files are being transmitted, stored, and accessed. More logins are happening from more locations. People working from home at night, working from clients' offices, working from anywhere they can get Wi-Fi. More people have temporary or elevated access because of the volume. Then there's fatigue and distraction. Your team is working long hours. They're thinking about work. They're thinking about deadlines. They're not thinking about whether an email looks slightly off. They're not thinking about security best practices. They're thinking about getting the work done. And that's the natural human state during a busy season, but it's also when mistakes happen. Someone opens an attachment without thinking. Someone reuses passwords because they're juggling too many systems. Someone clicks a link in a suspicious email because they're moving fast. There's also an expanded attack surface. If you bring in temporary staff for tax season, which many firms do, you're adding more access points. You're adding new people who aren't familiar with your security protocols. You might be less rigorous about onboarding security training when you're in crunch mode. And after tax season, you might be slow to deprovision them, so you end up with temporary staff who should have had access removed months ago, but still do. And then there's credential reuse and fatigue. When people are working long hours from multiple locations, there's a temptation to use simpler passwords, to reuse credentials across systems, to keep passwords written down for easy access. These are all security vulnerabilities that can be exploited. Let me talk about the specific types of attacks that are common during tax season. Phishing is the number one attack vector. You're sending lots of emails to clients, lots of emails to each other, lots of communication about files and access. An attacker sends a phishing email that looks like it comes from your document management system, from your email system, or from a client asking someone to click a link or provide credentials. The email lands in an inbox of someone who's busy and not thinking about whether it's legitimate. They click it. The attacker now has credentials. This attack works over and over because people are in crisis mode. Another common attack during tax season is credential reuse and compromise. An attacker knows someone's email address. Maybe they found it in a data breach elsewhere. They try using that email with common passwords or variations of the person's name. If that person is reusing credentials across systems, the attacker now has access. This is why requiring strong, unique passwords and multi-factor authentication is critical. It stops this attack vector even if someone's password is compromised. A third type of attack is targeting dormant accounts. An employee left the firm, but their access wasn't properly removed. Their account sits in your system, inactive, but still accessible. During tax season, when there's chaos and lots of file movement, an attacker can use that account to access client data without drawing attention. Nobody's looking for unusual activity because they're all focused on work. Here's what you should be doing to protect your firm during tax season, starting now, before the rush. Start with an access audit before tax season. Have your qualified individual with your IT provider do a complete review of who has what access. Identify any accounts that shouldn't still exist, like former employees or old contractors. Deprovision any temporary staff from the prior year who are still active. Make sure every active user has appropriate access for their role, not overly broad, not excessive. This is your baseline. Create a current access inventory so that during the rush, you're not guessing who should have what. Next, ensure multi-factor authentication is enabled for remote access and for access to sensitive systems. If your team is going to be logging in from home or from client offices during tax season, every remote login should require both a password and a second factor, usually a code from an authenticator app or a text message. This stops credential-based attacks even if someone's password is compromised. Test your MFA process before tax season so that you know it works and people know how to use it. Then, implement email security controls. Configure your email system to flag external emails that are spoofed to look like they're coming from your organization. Flag emails with suspicious attachments. Require additional caution before people download attachments from external email. Your IT provider can probably enable some of these controls. The goal is to reduce phishing success. Some email systems allow you to require approval before clicking links in external emails. Consider these controls. You also want to do security training before tax season, not after. Ideally quarterly, but at minimum before the busiest time of year, have a brief security awareness session. What does a phishing email look like? How do you verify whether an email is legitimate? What should you do if you think you've clicked on something suspicious? What's your password policy? How does MFA work? Make it short and relevant. Document the training. When you did it, who attended, what was covered. Another important step is to establish a clear incident escalation process specifically for tax season. If someone thinks they've clicked on a phishing link or entered credentials into a suspicious site, what do? They should have a single point of contact, maybe your qualified individual or your office manager, and they should know that reporting it immediately is the right thing to do, not something to be embarrassed about. The faster you know about a compromise, the faster you can respond. Consider setting up a simple way for people to report suspicious activity: an email address, a phone number, a quick message to a specific person. Make it easy. On top of that, prepare your incident response plan for fast activation. Make sure contact information is current for your forensic firm, your cyber insurance, your IT provider's emergency number. Make sure everyone in leadership understands their role if there's an incident. Make sure you have a document with emergency contacts accessible during tax season. During tax season, when your team is stressed and stretched, having a clear incident response plan means you can move quickly if something goes wrong. You should also monitor more aggressively during tax season. If you have network monitoring in place, which you should, make sure it's tuned to flag suspicious activity. Things like multiple failed login attempts, unusual file access, logins from unusual locations, or at unusual times. During tax season, there will be more activity overall, so more vigilance is needed. Consider asking your IT provider to increase monitoring during tax season. Ask them to review logs daily instead of weekly. And finally, manage temporary staff carefully. If you bring in temporary or seasonal staff, treat them like any employee for security purposes. They get onboarded with security training, even a brief one. They get access provisioned in your system with a documented role using your access control policy. And critically, they get deprovisioned on their last day. Not a week later, not a month later. On their last day. That deprovisioning should be documented in your access inventory. Before they start, they should sign something acknowledging that they understand your security policies. Here's what's really important about tax season security. It's not about adding burden to people who are already stressed. It's about putting the right protections in place before the season starts, so that your team doesn't have to think about security when they're focused on clients. You've set up MFA, they don't have to remember to change their passwords. You've set up email filters, they don't have to detect phishing on their own. You've trained them, they know what to look for. You've documented your incident response plan, so if something goes wrong, there's a clear process. You've done an access audit, so you know who's supposed to have access. You've got monitoring in place, so if something goes sideways, you'll know quickly. And here's another angle. Demonstrating good security practices during the busiest time of your year is also a message to your clients. Your clients are dealing with April 15th too. So let me give you a tax season security checklist for your qualified individual to use in November or December. Make sure your access audit is complete and documented, and that dormant accounts have been removed. Make sure MFA is in place for all remote access, tested, and working with current staff. Make sure your email security filters are configured and tested, and that phishing alerts are enabled. Make sure your incident response plan has been reviewed and is current, and that emergency contact numbers have been verified. Make sure security training has been scheduled and completed, and that attendance is documented. Make sure monitoring is configured and tested, and that your IT provider has been briefed on alert thresholds during tax season. Make sure your incident escalation process is documented and communicated to your team. Make sure your temporary staff onboarding process is documented and security training is scheduled for them. Make sure your cyber insurance contact information is verified and accessible to leadership. Make sure your backup systems have been tested and verified working. And make sure your VPN or remote access systems have been tested and are working properly. Do these things before the rush, and you'll be protected when tax season hits. Your controls should be running in the background so that your team can focus on work without worrying about security. That's it for today's episode. If what we talked about resonated with you, I'd encourage you to take the next step. Head over to safeguardgrc.com. That's safeguardgrc.com. It's the platform I built specifically for CPA firms to manage everything we've been discussing. Your risk assessments, your policies, your access reviews, your vendor oversight, your training documentation. All in one place, mapped directly to the FTC Safeguards Rule and IRS Publication 4557. You don't need to figure this out alone, and you don't need to build it from scratch. Safeguard GRC walks you through it module by module so you can get your governance program up and running without becoming a security expert. Whether you're just getting started or you're preparing for your next insurance renewal, it gives you the structure and the documentation to do it right. While you're there, check out the book, The Governance Gap, for the full picture of how CPA firms are meeting these requirements without overhauling their operations. And if you found this episode helpful, share it with a colleague. Chances are they're dealing with the same questions you are. Thanks for listening. I'll see you in the next one.